How's it going? Okay, let's see. There. That's a little bit of a better view. That's a little bit of a better view. So, where do I start? Well, let me get something real quick. What am I looking for? Oh, yeah. Really don't want to take this because I don't want to get sleepy, but so I know I've said it before on here, and I will say it again. As I've gotten older, I used to be, as younger people do, so concerned about people, being likable, basically being likable, people liking me or whatever. Hang on a second. I'm trying to open this. But yeah, as I've gotten older and learned more about the world and people and all that, I have concluded that, I would rather people respect me than like me, because when people respect you, it doesn't really matter whether they like you or not, if that makes sense, because, how do I put it? Trying to be liked comes along, or what am I trying to say? Comes along with a lot of, I don't know, extra shit that basically is a waste of time to do, kind of, is what I'm trying to say. Like, because the reality of it is, you don't control whether people like you or not, but you do control whether people respect you or not. You know what I mean? I don't give a fuck if a person doesn't like me, but you're not gonna mistreat me. That's what it is. Because the reality of it is, when you try to get people to like you, you kind of make yourself a target, and people end up, yeah, they might sit there and say, oh yeah, I like you, but they might be liking you for the wrong reasons, meaning, like, if you have no boundaries and you're just relentlessly giving to people, people might like you because you don't bring any confrontation, you know what I mean? And that's more comfortable for people when they're not confronted. And so, like I'm saying, people may quote unquote like you, but it might not even be for the right reasons, or the reasons that you deserve to be liked for, if that makes sense. So if you're coming from a place of, you're gonna respect me, respect is deeper than liking somebody. It's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like when you demand respect, you see who really likes you and who doesn't, if that makes sense. Because it's like the people that really like you for you, genuinely, they're going to respect you. You know what I mean? It kind of goes hand in hand. But the people who are fake, they're not going to. And that's going to tell you who deserves your energy and attention and time. You know what I mean? So, and what I mean by that is, like, setting boundaries with people. And that's what the title is about. Like, we teach people how to treat us. So if a person is manipulative or delusional, or they're not wanting to hear what you're saying and actually take it in and act accordingly, well, you can't control that, but you can control your own behavior. You can control what you do. And so whether they want to get it or not, they don't have to get it. Who gives a fuck? But if you're not going to get it, then I'm going to stay the fuck over here, you know? So again, that ties into that. I don't give a shit if you like me or not, but you are going to fucking respect me. And if you don't, then I guess you're not going to like me very much, because I don't fuck with people, and I don't like people who don't respect me. I don't respect people who don't respect me. So it's also learning how to build your own self-worth and your self-esteem to get to a place where you realize that's really not as important as it is people respecting your humanity. You know, because people who respect your humanity, I guess what I'm trying to say is, the quicker you set boundaries, the quicker you know who actually likes you and respects you. Because if you set boundaries and a person doesn't do anything to reconcile that or change that, and I guess it just depends on on what it is, because it's like, I know that's a very general statement, but yeah. All right, fuck this right here. I'm gonna just get this out. But yeah, so I think it really just, what it comes down to is loving yourself enough to know what you deserve, and whether people are, you know, whether people like you or not, standing on that shit regardless. Because at the end of the day, you know, one of the biggest lessons I had to learn is that nobody's coming to save you. You know, you really have to learn how to save and advocate for yourself. And I know a lot of people are taught like the opposite of that, because they're around dysfunctional people and stuff like that. And so the concept of that can seem intimidating or scary to some people. But I'm telling you, as somebody who's done it myself, you don't think that people are going to go along with it, but I don't know how to explain this. It's kind of like you get to a point of confidence where you're not asking the person to treat you well. You are telling them what it is. You're telling them what it's going to be. And they have a choice either, and this is not control, you guys, this is a boundary, by the way. Either they're going to respect your boundary or they're not. And that's fine if they don't want to, but I'm not fucking with you if you don't. And that will come across in the way that I carry myself and the way that I show people. I usually, I'm the type of person where, you know, I'm kind of like one of those mic drop types of people, or I'm one of those people where my actions do speak louder than my words, and my silence speaks volumes. That's, I mean, usually kind of how I go about it. It's like, I'll let people know, and then it's like, either you get it or you don't. Okay, you don't get it. Okay, see ya. And that's it. And again, it's not the easiest thing to do, because you might not be accepted by a ton of people. You know, you may not be popular. You may not be, popular is not the word. You may not be quote unquote liked by these people, but you know what? Who gives a shit if people who don't respect boundaries don't like you? They're delusional. Like, who cares? They're not liking you. It's like kind of, and I think it's also recognizing where people are at emotionally speaking, not looking at their physical attributes, like, because I think that intimidates people sometimes. And it's like, you really have to look at the person for where they're at emotionally. If this person is at the emotional maturity level of a fucking kindergartner, I'm sorry, but you don't scare me. I don't give a shit who you are. If you don't understand basic boundaries or how to consider other people, you didn't graduate from preschool / kindergarten. So why the fuck would I want to fuck with you anyway? And why would I give a fuck if you like me or not? Who cares? Who cares? Because your opinion at that point is null and void. Because if, I think you have to look at the emotional intelligence of some of the people that you're dealing with. And it's kind of like, well, some of these people, a lot of people aren't emotionally intelligent enough to even know how to do some of these things. So it's like also not taking it personally. It's not personal. Nothing that anybody ever does to you is ever personal to you, even if it feels like it is. And that is because we're all acting from a place and a space of our own life experience. And essentially, we're all like projecting that life, like projecting that outward and making our life decisions based on that. You know what I mean? So that's why anything that anybody does is, it's not personal, because it's only personal to that person. It has to do with where they came from. It has to do with their life experience. And even if it's directed at you, doesn't mean it's personal to you, because that person probably does that with everybody else. You know what I mean? So that has nothing to do with you. So I think part of the healing is learning to detach and separate yourself. That's ego, and recognize, hey, there is no self. All this, that's made up too. So don't take it personally, because it's not personal to you. That's just your ego speaking, because really there is no you. That's like because nothing really is and everything really isn't. That's that line by Jhené Aiko, because nothing really is and everything really isn't. So essentially she's saying in that it's all fake, it's all made up. This is all all of these things, humans created them. Every single thing I'm saying right now, the words I'm using, humans made up this language. They made up, smoking a plant out of the ground and wrapping it in a blunt paper. You know what I mean? Like, so when you recognize that kind of takes the weight off things. You know what I mean? That takes the weight away from it, which makes it easier to approach it. And that's part of like healing your ego, is when you recognize that, like, this has nothing to do with me. And so when you take yourself out of it, it's much easier to act accordingly, basically. So yeah, so that's like how you lead by action, and you teach people how to treat you, because if they don't want to hear what you're saying, that's fine, but they'll have no choice to basically learn that they have to approach you in a certain way or treat you in a certain way in order to be in your life. And that will be evident in the action you take to show that person what you're gonna do if they don't respect your boundaries, if they don't respect where you're at, So yeah, so I think that's really what it comes down to, is kind of learning to heal some of these inner things so you can detach. And I don't mean detach in an unhealthy way. I mean detach from your ego, basically. And it makes it much easier to approach doing some of these things. And also, a lot of it is just facing your fear. Like, it is going to be uncomfortable to confront people, like, if you're not used to doing so, you know what I mean? But over time, that ain't shit. Speaking from personal experience, it can be intimidating, but the more that you do it, and the more that you see that it protects you, or that it is kind of, keeping you safe, like building up kind of a perimeter around you, the more you will do it and recognize, or like see its value, basically. Because again, even if people don't want to respect your boundaries, if they don't, then that's where you set another boundary, showing the person, okay, you don't want to respect the first boundary that I set, or you don't want to hear out the first thing I said, you don't want to live in reality, then okay, then I'm going to set another boundary, because I don't want to live in delusion with you. And again, it's tough. You've got to have tough skin, because a lot of people are coming from unhealed places and from a place of ego. So they are going to be offended because they're not healed, and they're not going to be able to look at it maybe, or even understand it, like understand what you're doing. A lot of unhealed people, it's like if you set boundaries or you do stuff, it's like they may be offended, or they may blame you or say it's about you. And it's like, it really, again, who gives a fuck? It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you're gonna feel better, you know what I mean? Ultimately, in the long run. It might be uncomfortable in the moment when you set boundaries or confront people or stand up to them, but over time, as they come to accept the new norm and where you stand, it's worth it. You know, it's worth it. And like I said, it can be difficult, because I'm a very emotionally sensitive person. Like, I empathize with people. I care about everybody. And so when you care about a lot of people or everybody, it can be hard to do that too, because it's like, not because what you're doing is mean or wrong, but because of the way that the person is going to receive it or perceive it, which might not be in alignment with truth. You know what I mean? So like, unhealthy people, if you set a boundary with them or you cut them off, they might have the thought process that, oh my gosh, you're just so mean. You're such a cruel person. You cut me off. What a meanie head. And you're over here like, bro, like, you've been like covertly abusing me since like age zero. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, so you might be in two different realities than the person, but that doesn't mean that what you're doing is incorrect or wrong or unhealthy. A lot of times in dysfunctional situations or family units or dynamics or whatever, like, it's hard to get reality validated, because a lot of the people in those dynamics are living within some type of narrative or illusion of the truth, you know? And so again, you just have to remind yourself that, like, who cares? Like, and also, like, kind of feel sorry for those people, pity those people, because it's like, that would suck to be that unhealed and that lost, that I seriously am not even aware enough about myself to where I like blame other people or mistreat other people and claim it's them when it's really me. I mean, what a nightmare. What a fucking nightmare. That must be miserable internally, or on some level, to live in that way. Because you're never really connected to anyone, including yourself, when you live in that delusion. You're not really connecting with yourself if you're not coming to, you know, face the reality of who you actually are, or if you're hiding behind some type of image or narrative, you know? So again, it really doesn't matter. So just coming to, and I know, like I said, that's hard to get to that place where you don't give a fuck. And I think it's not really about getting to a place where you don't give a fuck, because like I said, I still do this with people, and I very much so give a fuck. I give a lot of fucks, but it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like one of my mentors said to me in the past. It's like, when you're an adult, sometimes you just have to make painful decisions and say, fuck that feeling. You know what I mean? Like, fuck how this is like making me, oh, boo hoo, yeah, okay, who cares? Like, what do I have to do as an adult? You know what I mean? And I learned that as I got older. Like, this is a waste of time. Like, not that you shouldn't feel your feelings. You should definitely feel your feelings, but to wallow in them or to get stuck in them and then, oh, I don't know which way to go. Like, no, I've learned to kind of take more of an observational view of my feelings and like, okay, yeah, this is how I feel, but like, let me set that aside. But like, what are the facts? You know what I mean? What are the facts about the situation? And that's what you should make your decisions based on. Fact, not emotion. Not, oh my gosh, how much I love this person, or how much I care about this person, or, oh, this person is my family member, or this person is my mom or dad, or no. You should look at who is this person really? How have they treated me? How have they treated me personally? You know what I mean? Not who do they show themselves to be to other people, or who have they been to other people, or who have they been at moments or in moments towards you. No, it's like as a whole, who is this person? Looking at behaviors can usually be helpful. Looking at people's specific behaviors, and then that can kind of help you detach from the emotion. So like going through, like, yeah, when they said XYZ, this was guilting, this was blame shifting, that's emotionally abusive, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. Okay, well, yeah, I love this person, but do I want to be emotionally abused? No. Okay, so what do I do to not be emotionally abused? I walk away, you know what I mean? Like that kind of. So it's like, not that you're not going to have feelings, of course you are, but it's just learning to not always allow your feelings to sway or influence your decision making. It's like, it's kind of like in dialectical behavioral therapy, you've got the logical mind and you've got the emotional mind, and then in the middle is the wise mind. That's kind of what it is. And that's actually what I learned to do, is like approach things from a space of mindfulness. That wise mind of, the wise mind is basically somewhere in the middle. It's not just making completely an emotional decision, and it's not completely logical. It's kind of somewhere in the middle, which I know I said, like, don't make decisions at all based on emotion. Obviously, you can kind of utilize emotion to be your, I don't know, to navigate your way through it. But I think ultimately it should be made based on like the facts, if the facts say that this is not healthy, if that makes sense. So it's like, yeah. So yeah, I think that's what I've learned to do over time. And like I said, I still have a lot of emotions about things, and it still doesn't always feel the most comfortable, especially when you're going against a pattern you typically do. Like, it can kind of make you feel like, it can be confusing, because emotionally speaking, your brain or your body or whatever is still wanting you to continue doing that same emotional pattern that you've been doing. So when you go outside of that, it can spark a lot of feelings and stuff like that. And so the purpose is basically just not allowing those feelings to be the only thing driving your behavior. Yeah. It's like emotions can be used as a navigation tool, but I think the reason I say this too is like specifically speaking to people who have been in any type of narcissistic dynamic or abusive dynamic. That's why this is important, because, or like anything that's like very dysfunctional, where it's like the person isn't fixing it, or like there isn't a solution or whatever, if that makes sense, or the person won't resolve it, you know? So yeah. So let's see, what else? And that's basically how you teach people how to treat you, you know, by what you accept and what you allow and what you don't allow. So, you know, that's the thing, is that making decisions based on emotion can lead you down that path of kind of getting stuck. That's why I say, you know, being careful with that, especially if you've grown up in a dynamic, or not even just grown up, if you've been in any type of narcissistic dynamic. It's like, the reason a lot of times people feel so out of control and it's so like traumatizing is like, it's like your brain and your emotions get hijacked. So it's like not only can you not trust anybody outside of you, but because you've been so fucking brainwashed and manipulated, it's really hard to trust yourself because your emotions have been fucked with, you know, and on top of it, your perception and your reality has been fucked with. So it really is, cognitive dissonance is not a comfortable place to be, you know. But like I've said before, if you can find a way to step outside of yourself by, you know, trying to observe it in some way, so like through meditation, just sitting with yourself and watching as emotions, you know, come and they go and thoughts come and they go and not reacting to them, you know, that kind of teaches you how to discern them, discern what you're what you're dealing with, because I think that becomes confusing too when you've been in a narcissistic or dysfunctional dynamic. It becomes confusing to discern who's who and what's what, including with yourself. So that's why I say that about detaching from your emotions, because you could, I mean, it's kind of like being in a cult, you know, you can be emotionally intelligent, you can be in tune with your emotions, but if they've been hijacked and you've been brainwashed and you don't know that, then that's not really going to do you any good. So that's why I say looking at the facts. So, yeah. And your intuition, which, you know, this was helpful when somebody said this to me. How can you tell the difference between intuition and emotion? And logic. Intuition is very, very soft and subtle, and it's kind of like a whisper. You know what I mean? It's that's why people have such a hard time with it, because especially traumatized people, their intuition gets hijacked. So you can't fucking hear a whisper when you've been so fucking traumatized that your nervous system is all over the place. Well, it's hard to calm down in order to even hear that whisper or discern that whisper, because emotionally you're not able to calm down so that you can. So I think, where was I going with that? So intuition that's kind of how you tell the difference. Is emotion is very intense. Fear and emotion, acting based off fear and emotion, it's intense and it's going to be very obvious. And intuition, not so much. Like I said, it is like a whisper. It's very subtle. So that's, you know, and especially if you haven't had anybody validate your intuition, that can make it even harder, but to discern. But emotion and intuition are very different, and you can tell the difference because emotion, like I said, is much more intense. And it's tied to the ego too. So intuition is not intense because it's not tied to the ego. It's like, what's the word for it? An instinctual mechanism. So it's not, I don't know how to put this into words, but like, it's like a natural part of you versus when you've been traumatized or abused and your nervous system and your emotions kind of go all over the place. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. I don't know how to put it into words, but yeah, so I think this is why a lot of people struggle with knowing what action to take, especially people who come from trauma and dysfunction, because it's hard to tap into those things when, like I said, you're working against a brain that potentially has brain damage from emotional and verbal abuse or dysfunction, a nervous system that's been hijacked. So now you can't even really trust like how you're feeling or like what the signals that your body would naturally give you to indicate certain things are hijacked. So you're hypervigilant. So it's like, it is very hard to tap into those more natural instincts because you've been fucked with, you know? So like I said, that's why healing is important. Otherwise, you're going to think it's intuition, and it's really emotion. You know, just because you feel something doesn't mean, oh, that's right, or that's intuitively. No. And I think a lot of people have a problem with that, discerning the difference between emotion and intuition. And that's why tarot is dangerous for a lot of people to be watching, to be honest with you, because if you have not healed, that's why, no offense, like okay, and I'm literally speaking from my own personal experience. Like before I was healed, I would go watch tarot readings and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, oh my God, they're cheating with a married man. What is going on? I can't believe it. My whole life is, you know what I mean? And it's like, no. Oh my gosh. And I feel for myself, because it's like, but it's like you got to heal that stuff so that you can properly discern what actually applies and how the reason, like I said, a lot of people who have been through dysfunction or in dysfunctional situations can't discern the difference is because their emotions are out of control, because their nervous system is out of control, and you cannot hear your intuition when you are trying to fight against a out of whack nervous system and like emotions that are unregulated, because again, you've been fucked with. So learning to discern the difference is really the key to freedom, the key to your freedom. Yeah, because I would say the one thing that hang on one second. Okay, people, my bad. Oh, hey. What's fun is I literally deliberately tried not to do that. And I ended up doing it anyway. Funny. You know, it'd be like that sometimes, y'all. But anywho, I really think that was the message, you know. And I'm just gonna leave it at that, because otherwise peeps might not watch, but I am gonna go live in a second again. All right, peace.